Hello class, and welcome to this Dr. Chaos NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101 by way of Let's Play with Brigands. I'm your instructor, Professor Brigands, and we are kicking off an entire month of playing some of the spookier titles on the NES, starting off here with Dr. Chaos. As you can see the title there, dripping with blood, as a mysterious figure stalks around the mansion looking for a bathroom, or stabbing a piece of cake for themselves. They really liked the cake. And now back to trying to find the bathroom, but I digress. In terms of difficulty, Dr. Chaos is interesting in that it's one of those games where if you know where you're going and what to do, then it's a lot easier, and that's what we're doing here in this Dr. Chaos NES walkthrough. Still, there are some platforming stretches, which is half the game, which can be a little challenging, especially earlier on before you have more of a bevy of abilities, weapons, items, health, things you can rely on, which you'll get a little bit later in the game as you progress. So with all that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and give Dr. Chaos for the NES a 7 out of 10. On the frustration scale, this equates to punching a hole through the wall, which is apt because that's exactly what you need to do to progress in some parts of this game, which we'll talk about. Give you the most efficient route through the mansion. Blaze has your weapons and items guide to compare the damages the different weapons do, what the different items do. Fluff has a number of interesting facts about this game, and Gary, of course, has your boss beaters, which are particularly very effective in this game. So let's run the intro and get into this Dr. Chaos NES walkthrough right here on Video Games 101. So as soon as we start a new game here in Dr. Chaos, we're going to hit the ground running with the most efficient route. So before we hit start, let's take a look at the Briggs notes. These are the keys for beating this game in this Dr. Chaos NES walkthrough. First, stock up on items and health between warp zones after we kill a boss and head back to the mansion. We can stock up on all the replenished items, use those items liberally as a result, and use Gary's boss beater / just follow this guide for the most efficient route. Now let's take a look at the controls real quick too. Attack with B, jump with A, pick up an item with A in that first person view. Use a command with A as well. Hold B and tap up or down in that first person to cycle different commands. We can pause with start and cycle our weapons with select. Press up to enter a room. So let's go in this first room here in the mansion. Note that you can tell what screen we're on by the compass in the bottom right. Shows which direction we're facing. Open up that cabinet there, get yourself some bullets early on, open this door, hit go to go through it, open this cabinet in this next room to get some medicine to get 25 health back, pick up this gun here, and let's get an overview of the items we're picking up now with Blaze. Alright, let's go over the basic items you'll find as you are ransacking the various rooms, searching them here in Dr. Chaos. First, you have the yellow potion, the yellow health restoring potion for 25 health. This is in contrast to the blue potion, which gives you 100 health. Very rare in this game you'll find these, one of these in a certain boss room late in the game, but don't expect to find these too often. Then you have the pistol and the machine gun. These refill 10 of your ammo per, and then we have the grenades, which you can find refills 2 grenades when you pick one up. Good call, Blaze. Thank you very much. Alright, so now we're going to open up this window, hit go, and this is going to take us to our first warp area, where we get into the platforming outside of the mansion, that is, but this is where most of the action takes place, in these little warp areas, these warp zones outside of the mansion itself. Take the top route up here so that you can clear this grass. You can't make that jump if you come in from the bottom. And just time these fish right here. This is not too difficult, as you could probably pick up on by watching. Yeah, as we go through these warp zone areas, this is where we will ultimately get new items, which will give us more health in some cases, as well as picking up pieces of the ultimate weapon which we need to complete this game. Need to pick up all 10 weapons by defeating 10 bosses or 10 weapons pieces to create that final weapon, which we'll use on the final boss. And speaking of bosses, we're coming up on our first one here in Dr. Chaos. So let's throw it over to Gary for the first time today.
It's Scary Gary's Boss Beaters.
Alright, the first boss, I'm gonna call him E.T.'s cousin. Stab him 5 times, and then feel immediately bad about yourself for killing such a defenseless creature. Come on, class.
Hey, it was him or us, Gary. Blaze, what are we picking up here?
All right, the Ultra Space Sensor. Kind of redundant if you're using this Dr. Chaos walkthrough, but this will identify nearby warp zones by lighting up when you're facing one on the right screen.
Good call. Thank you, Blaze. Thank you, Gary. Probably didn't need Gary for that first one, strictly speaking, but his tips will be invaluable later on. And as we're just backtracking the same way we came in, let's get an overview of the different weapons of Dr. Chaos with Blaze.
All right, let's talk about the different items you can get in Dr. Chaos. We start off with the very limited knife. Short range, weak damage. Search around and find yourself the pistol early on. This is 2.5 times more powerful than the knife. Better than that, 1.5 times more powerful than the pistol is the submachine gun. This also fires faster. It's easy to go through these bullets, so be careful. And then lastly, the grenade, which is roughly the same damage as that machine gun. This kills pretty much every enemy on the screen except for the special ones, also dealing 5 damage to you, so keep that in mind.
All right, thank you very much, Blaze. Again, as we mentioned, as we're back here, just follow along. You can go at the top of the screen to flip your direction altogether if you want to go from south to north very quickly. Just move that cursor up to the top of the screen, but we're going to exit back out into the main area of the mansion and go into this middle door on the 2nd floor here. Open this up to get a gun. And remember that Briggs note to use these, just leave that there for now, even though we don't really need it. Use the different weapons which you pick up liberally, because you can always stop in on any of these rooms and restock on your ammo and whatnot. We're not always going to be doing that. We're not going to be spending a lot of time. Mostly just going to be picking up what we think we need. Don't need that medicine, obviously, as well. We're topped off at 99 for the moment. So let's go through this window now for our second warp zone. Once again, we want to stay up top. Every now and then you'll get one of these special monsters popping in. Those winged skeleton creatures in particular take 2 shots from our pistol. So not a bad time to have those out. If you get surrounded by those types of enemies, you might want to just go ahead and pull out one of your grenades and toss those, despite the 5 damage that you take. But you want to make sure you have at least 3 grenades before you come into this particular area. And if you've been following along to this point, you should certainly have 6 grenades by now, which is more than enough for this boss if you follow Gary's very detailed strategy right here coming up. Right now, this isn't too difficult, just fighting our way through this corridor, making sure the enemies don't overtake you. Don't try to make that jump right there. We can stay down for the time being. And let's just toss one of our grenades here to clear all of the enemies off the screen. Little guys will always respawn unless you're standing right on top of them, after that second time in particular, but you'll find that if you shoot enemies and they don't die from one shot, it will at least freeze them for a second so you can get that second shot in. Just make sure you put a second between them so you don't waste that shot. But Gary?
Boss Beaters.
Alright, second boss, Stay Puft Marshmallow Man's roommate, let's call him. Get to the bottom of the screen and duck. Wait for that boss to disappear. Kind of anticipate him returning and throw those 3 grenades in sequence as quickly as possible. If he disappears again, you'll have to start the whole thing over. That's why you want to get that first grenade in pretty much right after he disappears the first time, because he's going to come right back. And that's the best way to get those 3 in very quickly. You'll take him down.
Good strategy. And what did we just pick up, Blaze?
All right, the health bottle. Grab all 4 of these. Each one increases your max health by 100.
All right, good call. Thank you very much, Blaze. So now, yeah, we're topped off at 199 health, which will will be good for picking up some of those medicines that we know that we have waiting for us back in the mansion. Just take the low road here and avoid these guys. Honestly, a lot of times in this game, it's just as effective to avoid enemies. You just don't want to be surrounded to the point that you're just getting knocked around, because the temporary invincibility which you enjoy after taking a hit does not last very long. It's very temporary, so just something to keep in mind. But here we can certainly avoid what would be a great Halloween costume, I have to say. Sure, there were some super fans of this game in the late 80s and early 90s who did a little cosplaying for Halloween as someone in this game, maybe our main character, maybe some of the other enemies. We'll get some context as to what's actually going on in this game from Fluff in a little bit, but right now, back into the mansion. And we're going to go back into this middle room where we know that we have this medicine waiting for us here. Pick that up. And then just flip around here, go through this door. Let's go downstairs. Go to the left this time. See, the movement's a little unpredictable for these mice. They stop and start, as do a lot of enemies in this game, you'll find. But it's time to use the hit command right here to unlock a secret area for the first time. So let's punch the wall right there. Go on through. And then turn around, just got a grenade sitting on that couch right there. Imagine inviting company over. I would just brush that grenade out of the way and make yourself comfortable. Yeah, going through that door brings us to the third warp zone overall, if we try to get that third piece of the gun. So far, not too challenging. As long as you're keeping on top of your item situation, as we mentioned in the Briggs note. Should be in good shape. Sometimes you just want to bait the guy into making that jump and then leave him in the dust. It's interesting, the enemies don't seem to really disappear in this game. You can't really scroll them off the screen. So if you went back to the left, you would still see a lot of those enemies that you thought that you just left behind. Safer to take the top route up here. We need to take the top route, but you can avoid a lot of the danger this way. Got our next boss here, Gary.
Boss beaters.
Alright, the third boss, Mr. Snuffleupagus' uncle. Drop to the bottom of the ladder, fire 2 shots in his face, jump, you'll automatically be standing at the bottom of that ladder, and you'll be safe when he transitions from the right to the left and vice versa. Just repeat this process. 20 shots from the pistol takes him down.
Good call, Gary. Very simple pattern right here. Again, haven't really been tested by any of these bosses yet, but... And what do we pick up?
Alright, the air helmet. This is necessary to go underwater without taking damage. Necessary to complete the game, as there are a few underwater stretches. Have this. Automatically takes effect. The air helmet.
Good call. Thank you very much. And once again, we are just backtracking the way that we came. Back out of the warp zone here. Be nice if there was a way that we could warp back to the mansion without having to go through all this again, but rather avoid those special enemies up top. Every now and then you'll get one of these rotating kind of brain-looking enemies. They don't do too much in the way of damage, but that worked out. Like when they go for those deep lunges when we're not around, that's definitely going to hit us. Sometimes you just got to take the medicine and keep running. And we'll get some actual medicine once we get back to the mansion. Yeah, if you've played Goonies too, then a lot of this will seem very familiar to you. It's kind of the exact same fusion of those first-person room exploration stretches of the game. Kind of point and clicking along with this platforming. Alright, so back here, grab yourself another grenade. Open this door here. Now we're in this little in-between passage, which we could only access by punching that hole through the wall, which we did earlier. If you ever want to go back the way that you came, note that whenever you come through a door, you're facing away from that door. So you just have to, in this case, go back west, and you'd see that door which we just came from, but punch this east wall here. This is taking us back to the main area of the mansion. If we open this door, we'll be back at the bottom of those stairs over to the right. And remember that there is always medicine waiting for you in this middle door, just by opening this cabinet right here. So always a good time to refill that. Grab yourself some ammo too while you're at it. You can punch this wall here above the medicine to reveal a secret area, so go through there and we get some more ammo for our automatic weapon. I like to save that for later on in the game, but tip right here is to make sure that you are absolutely maxed out on health before this next warp zone. It's probably the hardest in the game. Remember that that's there because we'll need it when we come back. But yeah, the next warp area is, you can tell by our ultra space sensor going crazy right there. Open this door and head on inside. I think a bunch of water would come pouring out, but I guess that's part of the warp zone. So we needed the air helmet for this section first off to be able to breathe underwater, otherwise we just constantly take damage. Take the upper route here first off, but this is probably the most frustrating and hardest stretch of the game, mostly because how the physics underwater handle before you get the next upgrade, which we're going to get from beating the next boss. You'll find that if you just tap jump, you still rocket to the top of the screen because of that, the underwater physics that they like to do in video games, where you can apparently jump 10 times your normal height when you're underwater. But which is cool, but the problem is you can't regulate how high you go. Tapping the jump button or just holding it down, you go the exact same height up the screen. So it makes avoiding enemies, it makes lining up attacks with enemies extremely difficult. You also find that if you get hit by one of these fish, you get smacked up into the air and it takes a while to come back down. So you can get in some extremely frustrating cycles where you just keep getting knocked up higher up and then get dropped down into more lines of fire. Just not a fun little warp zone right here by any stretch of the word. That's why you absolutely need to have as much health as possible before you come in here. Try to minimize as much damage as you can as you come through here. Don't be afraid to use your gun if you need to, but that said, you're probably going to want to have about as much ammo as we have right here to take on this next boss. Gary has some tips which will be very helpful, but it's probably the most frustrating boss as well out of all of them. Maybe not the hardest, but then again, maybe it is. I don't know. It's a toss-up. You can also duck, obviously, to avoid some of these enemies. But yeah, literally the only enemy here outside of those special brain-like enemies that spawn in every now and then. But good lord, finally at the boss. Gary, what do you got for us?
Boss beater.
Alright, the tweaked turtle and sons you'll find. First, stab him 28 times so you don't waste any ammo. And then, before you fire any bullets, go to the lower left side. After that 28 stab, fire the bullet. That's when he'll split. Just stay in the bottom left side and only fire your gun when one of the little versions goes down to the very bottom. And that's the best way to ensure that you'll get a good shot in on him. The machine gun is recommended as it does more damage, but as you can see, just stick to this strategy, you'll take him down.
Good call, Gary. Yeah, just posting up here. And yeah, pretty much the only time, as Gary mentioned, that you can, it's rough when they knock you up into the air, and depending on how much damage you took just getting here, this can be a very, very tough out. And that item can't help us, it's just part of the jumping, which, I mean, you could argue maybe having a bit more control over your jumps can help you hit these enemies a little more efficiently, but I also don't want to risk going over there and taking damage. This is going decently well, but yeah, if you want to use that machine gun to do some more damage, have these guys take 1, maybe 2 2 less hits per. There we go. All right. What'd we just get, Blaze?
Are the jump boots. Like so many other games, these allow you to jump higher, and more importantly, in my opinion, is regulate your jump height. So if you want to make a smaller jump to avoid some enemies, you can do that by just tapping the button. If you hold it down, you get that full length, that full height of the boots, but very important, the jump boots.
Thank you very much, Blaze. And yeah, aside from getting to that boss in the first place, and then obviously killing them and surviving that, you also need to survive the return trip. So that's why I was debating between a 7 and a 6 for this game. This is why it's a 7 and not a 6, in my opinion. But anyway, while we're backtracking, let's get our first Fluff fact about this game, Dr. Chaos, from our resident fact finder, Fluff. What do you got, Fluff?
Dr. Chaos is a 1988 action-adventure game developed by Marionette and published by FCI in North America. In Japan, the game features the subtitle Hell's Gate, which was understandably dropped from the American release, considering Nintendo's strict censorship policies of the late 80s and early 90s forbidding any religious references or imagery in their games. Combining first-person point-and-click room exploring with 2D action platforming, the game bears a suspicious amount in common with Konami's The Goonies 2, which was released just months before this game in Japan, making me wonder just how much that game could have informed the development on this title, if at all, given the relatively short development cycles these games were known for. I normally like to give some facts on the developer, in this case Marionette, but I found precious little information on them outside of the fact that they only developed a couple other titles which made it to the NES in North America, including Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Pooled Radiance and Phantom Fighter, both of which were also published by Dr. Chaos's North American publisher and FCI.
Yeah, I mentioned Goonies 2 earlier as well, which we have an upcoming class on. But yeah, it is a little suspicious, as we thankfully made it back in one piece. Definitely need all the medicine now. But by the same token, just know that that's pretty much the hardest part of the game, and we're just going to have more health moving forward. And yeah, we'll be in much better shape for taking on subsequent areas, which again aren't as difficult for the most part. So there you go. It's just the difficulty there was a product, as we punch the wall here, was a product of simply just poor game design or poor game play. Although I guess you can make an exception for that, considering that it was almost by design, because it got better as soon as we got that jumping upgrade with those boots. But anyway, so we're already doing better in the health department, back to 55 on that second 100 that we have, or that first 100, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, come back into the mansion overall, grab this medicine right here on the table. And just looking for a bit more ammo at this point. And once again, got that hidden grenade right there. I guess it's safe to punch something to make a grenade reveal. We're not punching the grenade itself, but still doesn't sound like the smartest decision we've made. But anyway, so in this room to the left of that middle one, again, just trying to get some more ammo. We're not going to be hurting for ammo nearly as much for the rest of the game. Ammo, health, you name it. We're in much better shape. So we are now topped off just between these 3 rooms here on the second floor of the mansion. So now it's time to head back down to the first floor. And now that we have these special boots which allow us to jump higher, we can access an area which we did not have access to before, or make progress in an area we didn't have access to before. Grab some more bullets right here. Go through the closet right here to the next warp zone. And again, we can stagger our jump height now if we want to, go a little bit higher, go a little bit smaller, just, whatever it takes to avoid some damage. We also don't have to adhere to a top route or a bottom route quite as urgently in a lot of cases. Sometimes there's still dead ends, but we're not blocked off by an inability to make a high jump anymore. So So that's nice. And immediately, as soon as you have these boots, even coming back from the water level stretch, you can recognize that just the gameplay starts to feel a little bit tighter. With that jump, we get a little bit more hang time in the air. Very useful for making some of these jumps. And got a dead end here where we gotta climb down this ladder right here. And yeah, this ceiling's a little bit low. I think we can still maybe. Alright, he's coming up, so I think we can actually. Okay, he's above us right here, so we can. Yeah, 9 times out of 10, I'm just trying to avoid a lot of these enemies. It's just safer. Can't necessarily avoid that guy, but we can lure him over to the left. Stay up top here. Avoid all these little jellies at the bottom. Actually, I think we need to drop down here because I believe, yep, this is a dead end right here, so. Take your weapon of choice to clear out these particular enemies, but here we are at the next boss. Let's go back to Gary.
Boss beaters.
Alright, the happy coal monster. I don't know, anybody else see it? Anyway, just stand on that ledge where we show right across the gap from the start. Drop down when he freezes, fire those 2 shots, jump back up and go to the right. This kind of keeps him in the right position for you so you can drop back down. Repeat this process. 10 pistol bullets takes him down.
Grab that health if you need it early, but again, you don't need it with Gary's strategy. Very simple. And we grab an extra 100 health for our max. Maxing us out at 299 now. Very nice. And once again, just backtracking the way that we came in. You can see the screen really starts to lag when you get a lot of sprites on the screen at once. But something we haven't had yet as we're about to get back to the mansion is an instance of an enemy forcing us out of one of the first-person point-and-click rooms back into the mansion. They'll scare you out every now and then you need to kill them before you can head back inside. But a lot of times it's just kind of versions of the enemies, the special enemies that we see in there. Just pull out your gun and shoot them a few times to take them down. One variety slows you down a little bit for some reason, but maybe we'll get one of those before too long. I've never gotten through an entire playthrough of this game without running into one of those creatures. They come out when you open certain doors. Just, I mean, it's all randomized, but I'm sure we'll run into one eventually. So just, again, grabbing a few supplies right now before we head into the next warp zone. We're pretty safe at this stage in the game. Like, I'm not going to say it's all downhill after that water level, but yeah, with the decent reserve that we have in health at this stage in the game, and plenty of stockpiles of bullets and machine guns, even more if you spend more time trying to find them throughout the different places in this game, but should be in good shape. And you saw the ultra space sensor going off, so let's head on through this door to take on the 6th overall. And this combines a little bit of underwater exploration with some above water as well. So we get a variety of enemies for a change this time, making it not quite as difficult as that 4th level overall, which was entirely water. Again, I hate how slowly and defenseless we are when we're just moving down in the water, but a lot of times it also doesn't incentivize you to kill these enemies because they're going to respawn right away unless you're standing right on top of them after that second kill. So Again, if you put 2 bullets in too quickly, it's not going to register that second shot, so you gotta put just a little bit of a stagger between that first and that second shot to ensure that it actually counts and kills that enemy. That one warped back in quite quickly there. Thought we were close enough, but gotta be right on top of that spawn point to ensure that they're not gonna come back. Music's not bad, I have to say, just it gets a little repetitive since there's only so many pieces to go around here. You have the warp zone, the boss, and the mansion itself. Maybe 4 or 5 different types of music in this game overall. Stay low here as we're coming up on our 6th boss here in Dr. Chaos. So let's go back once again to Gary.
Boss beaters.
Right, the sand water worm, better said, looks like a sandworm in the water, but stay on the left and keep firing your pistol. 20 shots will take him down. Every now and then when one of those projectiles gets close to you, just do a little bit of a hop and shoot to take it down. Not too difficult to get the line up just right, but yeah, just keep firing. You'll take him down probably before he gets to the left side, but if not, it's easy enough to transition from left to right.
Good call, Gary. Yeah. Always that flash when you take one down, by the way. Just something to keep in mind in case you're sensitive to that sort of thing. Trying to be better about pointing those out, because it's just kind of crazy the number of games which feature that flickering as a mechanic for showing an explosion or just some sort of dramatic moment. But anyway, as we are backtracking through the area we've already been through, not much new to say on this stretch, so let's throw it back to Fluff, get some context as to what's actually going on here in Dr. Chaos.
Dr. Chaos tells the story of Michael, who enters the mysterious lab/poorly designed mansion of his brother, Dr. Gin Chaos, a physicist with a focus on warp zones. You'd have a field day with the pipes of the Mushroom Kingdom, by the way, Professor. Anyway, Dr. Chaos had been keeping his brother abreast of his research and testing warp zones until he mysteriously went silent. After months of waiting and not having heard anything, Michael goes into the house foolishly armed only with a knife, which is where the game picks up. So technically we're playing as Michael Chaos, a name which admittedly sounds a lot less cool when you're the brother of a mad scientist, and more likely in the field of accounting or something.
Yeah, probably not the name you want if you're hiring someone to file your taxes for you, Mr. Chaos. It sounds like the fastest way to ensure an audit come tax season, but anyway, I do tend to agree with Fluff's description of the poorly laid out mansion, poorly designed mansion. I also have to say I haven't seen too many in the way of too much evidence to suggest this is a lab that we are in. But that's what the instruction manual wants to have us believe. Sure, a lot of tables, but not much in the way of equipment. He stores lots of grenades and ammo. He just sounds like maybe a doomsday prepper, if nothing else. Although I suppose if you discovered a bunch of warp zones and saw the things that Gin Chaos saw, or is it Jin? How do you pronounce that class? You say Gin or Jin? Then yeah, you might hide some stuff in the walls. Take a page out of Dracula's book, if we can make a reference to our class on that, or all those games really. He was doing it in every single one of those chapters of the Castlevania trilogy on the NES. Check those classes out via the playlist in the description. Some of the best the NES has to offer. This game, deservedly, I think, has some fans. Not a bad game, you know, some things could have been done better. It's enjoyable enough. I like picking this one up every now and then, assuming you know where to go. Again, it's just exercise and punching everything, opening everything, mostly punching everything, and not knowing what the heck is going on in this game if you don't know where to go. So, speaking of where to go, I'd like to come back upstairs to this little loop here. At least grab a little bit more health. More bullets. Nice little supply area in these this first kind of concentrated area of the mansion. It's okay if you're still not fully topped off. The way forward to the next warp zone is through here. We still have a few more supplies to get. This will max out our health. And we can also grab ourselves some more bullets. And then, when you're ready, let me punch this, get some more grenades. We're gonna punch the wall right here, and then pop through. This will take us to the right in the mansion overall. And more supplies to get. We got more machine gun bullets in that window there. And you can see our sensor going crazy. If you need some more health, grab some from the closet there. But open this right window when you're ready. Come on through for Warp Zone 7 overall. As a general rule here, you want to stay more toward the top. Eventually there's going to be a dead end on the bottom route, so... Really, at this stage, we could just kind of tank our way through all this. Knowing that we got Gary's boss beaters, we got a lot of health in the tank on top of that to fall back on. And, yeah, I mean, that's the main thing at this stage. Plenty of health to be found back in the mansion. Just toss a grenade here when we're swarmed. Honestly, we're not, you don't have to be precious with the grenades at this stage in the game. We have more than enough bullets if your stats are looking anything like mine right now, or your inventory. But anyway, next boss, Gary.
Boss beaters.
Alright, the Red Arimer's brother by marriage, if you get the reference to our Ghosts and Goblins class. But anyway, stay at the opening when you get into this battle, and duck when that boss flies above. You want to shoot when the boss flies above you and below you to get those 2 shots in. 12 pistol shots takes him down. You might want to use the machine gun because he can do some damage to you. But you see he kind of bounces above and below you. But eventually he'll get a little wiser and adjust his patterns. So you might want to drop down to the bottom of the screen every now and then to reset him like we show. But that's how to take him down.
Good call, Gary. Yeah, one of the more difficult bosses right there. But that strategy works pretty well, especially, as mentioned, if you have a lot of health at this stage. As we just got that final health container, so we should be very good on health from here on out. Yeah, that was no Red Arimer. Much more difficult in Ghosts and Goblins. Much more difficult game, come to think of it. But as we are backtracking once again, let's throw it back to Fluff for another Fluff fact about Dr. Chaos. Fluff, what do you got?
As I mentioned earlier, Dr. Chaos was published by FCI, or Fuji Senkai Communications International, which is the American division of Fuji Senkai Communications Group. While they focus on television and media production today, during the 80s and 90s they published a number of titles from other developers for the NES, SNES, and Game Boy. While they worked with many different developers in addition to Dr. Chaos's Marionette, with a couple of exceptions, the vast majority of the titles they published are in the RPG genres, with roughly a dozen published titles between the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons and Ultima franchises alone.
Good call, Fluff. Yeah, very specific genre. A lot of games in that genre they were covering right there. I'm sure we have a lot of fans of some of those games here on Video Games 101. And if you open that door right there, this will spit you out on the rightmost door, at which point you can just drop down and swing back in here and grab some more items. I don't know why I always think there's a grenade there. Law of averages. A lot of times when you punch one of those empty sills right there, you can get yourself some, something, usually a grenade. Make sure you top off your health before we head into this next stretch. Plenty of opportunities to do just that here in the early rooms of this mansion and the upstairs as well. If you're not fully topped off, like we're not here, that's alright. Still more supplies to be getting on the way en route to where we're going. Still kind of shocked that we've never seen, I think, the Omen, Franken, or Big Lady. Kind of the three different types of enemies which can appear as you're exploring when you open doors. This might be a record, personally, for me, for as deep as we've played in this game without seeing any of them yet. Hope we'll get one appearance before all is said and done. Yeah, the Franken in particular is the one that slows you down and it makes you kind of think that there's something wrong with the game, which is why it can kind of throw you and make it a little more difficult to fight him. But yeah, the strategy is just get to the side of one of those creatures and just start blasting as we head to a secret area further west in the mansion/lab. By punching a hole through that wall there. That's where we just came from. Extremely easy to get turned around in this game, I will say. I don't think we're actually going through that north door right there. Yeah. Sometimes you can open a door and it'll tell you, nope, no, there's actually nothing in there, despite the fact that there we go. Omen. That's fun. I like Big Lady because she looks like Birdie from McDonald's. Birdie the early bird. It's kind of crazy, but anyways, yeah, just a couple shots will do it. Just create some space between yourself and whoever pops out. Just gun them down as we are now at full health and in pretty good shape to carry on here. There's a hidden area in this next room behind one of the walls. I get turned around a lot too, though. We got more bullets for our machine gun, but yeah, it's very easy when all these rooms look alike, even if they change the color of the paint on the walls. I believe it's on the west side, actually. Let's flip over here on the left above this cabinet right here. There you go. There's some more medicine in this cabinet. Actually, I think this one, the difference between the yellows and the reds are slight, kind of an orangey, but I think that one might give you back 50 health, so should be in good shape as we enter the 8th overall warp zone. They definitely didn't go out of their way to make sure these look all that different from one another. It seems like you have about 3 different biomes. You have the water, you have the forest, which sometimes they combine with the water, and then the kind of more brick or dirt leaning ones. Yeah, they all kind of look the same, but and they all kind of play the same too. It's not like they introduce a lot of new enemies or anything like that. At least Goonies kind of kept it a little fresher in that game. Of course, the trade-off in my estimation with Goonies is that they didn't introduce any bosses into that game. So, you know, I think the two games, they should have just combined Dr. Chaos and Goonies 2 into one especially good game instead of 2 just kind of okay games. That's my hot take. We don't deal in hot takes all that often, but there you go. That's how we alienate and divide up the class. But again, both games worth playing, I would say. Certainly a bit more Goonies than Dr. Chaos, but Both are solid games and require a lot of exploration and do things which you didn't get on a lot of systems, or a lot of the games on the Nintendo system. Anyway, coming up on the next boss, let's go back to Gary.
Boss beaters.
Alright, the uncredited Indiana Jones prop slash maybe a turtle or something, I don't know. You want to jump and hold that jump button when that boss transitions in that little, that high spot right in the middle. You're always going to get hit at the start, just so you know, but other than that, you can generally get through this battle without taking any damage. Just get one shot off as you're dropping to ensure it hits before they start rolling back at you again. Every now and then the boss will do this kind of fake me out quick roll move where they delay their rush, so just make sure you're looking out for that so you can time your jump accordingly, but stick to this strategy, you'll take them down.
Good call, Gary. Yeah, it's repetitive. See if we can get through this without taking any damage outside of that initial hit. Does decent damage too, 50 per hit. We came in with, I think 45 on that top health container, so have to be very careful with this guy. Damage can add up very quickly, but pretty straightforward pattern. And the final item of this game, Blaze?
Alright, the shield suit. Very important item. Of course you get it late in the game, but this halves all damage that you take moving forward.
Very, very useful item indeed. That basically makes us virtually invincible at this stage in the game. I mean, because, as I said, we have 499 health when we're maxed out. Probably have a lot of bullets across our various weapons just through the course of getting from one warp zone to the next at this stage in the game. Going through a lot of different rooms, and yeah, lots of items, lots of power-ups, zero excuses from here on out, class. In fact, the only two, we still have two bosses to take down before the final boss. We get those last two pieces of that laser, which we can unfortunately only use when we fight the final boss. But yeah, with those battles, all we're going to get are those blue health replenishers, the blue potions for 100 apiece, just to make those battles even easier at this point. But also have Gary's tips to fall back on. There you go. Yeah, that was definitely a 50 plus right there. So we have the red medicine as well. Very rare. Just a couple instances of that in the entire game, just like those blue ones we can get from the last couple of boss rooms before the final boss. So replenish as necessary, and then from this room we're going to go through the south door to get back to this little airlock here. So now we need to get to what's essentially the back door of the house to get to the little shed, where there will be another warp area. More supplies along the way. And hit this wall kind of on the lower side next to the closet to punch through here. Go to the north side to get some more medicine. Another 25 from that yellow. Looking pretty good on our machine gun bullets at this stage. Probably all we should use from here on out, but and if we go through this door, we'll be back at that little airlock section. So the way we want to go is back on that south side, but it's that door on the right, actually. So go through here, and this is the back door. And you have the little shed out here in the back of the house. Looks exactly like every other room in this house on the inside. And we can top off our health with that potion right there on the counter. And then you'll see our sensor going off on the north side. Open this window, and here we go. Again, just those 3 biomes, and once again we're combining the forest with the water right here. Not a lot of variety from the folks at Marionette. I guess they figured they put all their work into making such an intricate mansion or something, but the mansion also is not nearly to the scale that the house in Goonies 2 is, for what that's worth. You might say that that's a good thing, actually, I don't know, but it's not quite as confusing as Goonies 2. Yeah, I looked up Marionette myself, and yeah, Fluff mentioned we got the Advanced D&D Pooled Radiance, got Phantom Fighter, got this, but outside of that, I don't think there were many or any other games which made their way to US soil. Lots and lots of Japanese-only titles, and they were developing as recently as PlayStation 2 and the GameCube kind of era, so they have a decent number of titles to their name over the years, but not a whole lot that we would be familiar with. At least for our American and just Western audience. Those students in particular that had the Nintendo Entertainment System. But anyway, yep, filling time as we are coming up on the next boss right here in Dr. Chaos. Let's go back to Gary for his strategies on this one.
Boss beaters.
Right here we got an extra from Zelda 2, aim at his head. Be accurate and only fire when that boss is close so you can make sure that you make the shot. If you hit any other part of the boss other than its head, it will split. You have to do extra shots into each of them, plus the screen's gonna get more chaotic. If you just focus those shots on the head, he'll take him down before he splits. It's a much calmer and easier battle. 9 pistol shots takes him down. Once again, use the machine gun to take him down faster, but not too difficult with that strategy.
Thank you, Gary. Yeah, patience and accuracy is key right there. Not for the bullets, but just for the pain. You'll save yourself. You'll notice also we're not taking damage anymore when we drop our grenade, thanks to our special armor that we have here. And most enemies that used to just cause a few points of damage now do nothing, practically, or next to nothing. Like these explosions, 1 damage per. Just kind of makes it just a hassle at this point. Just more annoyed that they slow you down and knock you back a little bit. Anyway, as we continue to backtrack here, let's go back to Fluff one last time to get one final Fluff fact about Dr. Chaos. Fluff?
As was the case with a lot of games, the Japanese version of Dr. Chaos features a save feature allowing players to pick back up where they left off. North American players were forced to input a frustratingly long password to pick up their progress. There's also a handful of gameplay differences between the regional versions, as Michael's movement speed being slightly faster on the NES, plus the ability to turn around on the first-person view by moving the cursor up to the top of the screen. Some of the musical arrangements were slightly different in the NES version as well. You know, Professor, all these tiny changes invariably just feel to me like the North American publisher wants something to be able to point to whenever someone asks them, "What's your purpose?"
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Fluff. A lot of times I am scratching my head at some of the changes some of these developers made. We're just going to go through this bottom door here. You can grab yourself some medicine immediately if you need it to top yourself off. And now we're going to go through the this door over here, the one that led us back to that little airlock. And just one component to our gun to go, and of course it's the trigger, the one thing that makes the rest of it work. Quite necessary, I would say. Plenty of machine gun ammo at this stage. Yeah, punch a hole through here. We're ultimately working our way back to the main area of the mansion, which you start to recognize once you go through these rooms enough. How they, accidentally headed back into the one of those warp zones, but no. Now we're facing this way. There you go, back into the mansion. Gonna go through this first door to the right of the stairs, and gonna find a secret area to take us down into kind of a basement area of the mansion, which we have not yet seen. Right here on the north wall. Climb down this. Grab yourself a red medicine, I think that was at this stage. You can see, like, honestly, how easy everything is once you have an entire spread of top-tier items in this game. All the health, the body armor, which halves the damage. It's just, you don't really need health as urgently as you did earlier on in that water level in particular. I corrected myself earlier by saying, well, it's not all downhill after the water level, but honestly, now that we're doing this class here, I think that might be the case. That might be the hardest part of this game overall, because, yeah, between the strategies, the many replenishing items you can get outside of that little area, this is not too bad. Just a ridiculous number of grenades at this point, but just to point out that that's where they are. And you can see our sensor going wild. One last time, before the final time that is, we got to get that trigger for our gun. You think they might up the difficulty on these warp zones, but they didn't seem to have any concept as to how to do that, you know? Just not even necessarily adding more enemies. I mean, they kind of are, but with our body armor, it's not a problem. Do kind of like that fading backwards as we're facing the enemies outward with our gun. And yeah, one more forest and water mixed biome right here for good measure. How many does that make now? I mean, I feel like it's been 3 in a row at the very least. See those guys go down with 1 hit from the gun versus the 2 it took from the pistol, or the machine gun. It just takes the 1. No reason to sit on it now. Can't take it with us as we take on the penultimate boss, Scary.
Boss beaters.
Alright, the armored skull. You want to stay on the left side and crouch, and then shoot the boss on his downward motion, and then shoot him again as he's going back up, like we show. Roughly 10 machine gun shots will take him down. He's got that coating with his little bone shield that he's got going for him, so it's around 10, but do the strategy as we show. You'll take him down without too much trouble.
Good call, and then again we have a health top off right there. Well, in our case, I guess 100 health right there. Alright, so we'll backtrack one last time. We'll never have to do this again. For what that's worth. Kind of crazy though, looking at Marionette's credits list. All these games that I've never heard of that were Japan exclusives. Makes you wonder how many games are actually North American exclusives, you know, like your Star Tropics. That seems to be the exception to the rule when the States get a game which the Japanese market did not get. And a quality one at that, actually. We did a semi-recent class on that. Again, you can check that out via the playlist in the description. I guess a good time to get this out of the way as we're backtracking. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to Video Games 101 to enroll in this class. We do one of these classes every single week. We would love to have you along for the ride. Certainly in the upcoming weeks, as we are tackling some of the spookiest entries on the NES. Spookiest being in quotes. There weren't a whole lot of games on the NES, which legitimately could scare you. I guess Friday the 13th had its jump scare moments when I was a kid, perhaps, but certainly not today. I would say maybe Sweet Home has its moments. That was, speaking of Japanese exclusives. As we're going to head back to the main area of the mansion now. Just doing a little bit more backtracking here to get to the final warp zone now that we have our gun all constructed. We have every single item you need in this game, or you can collect in this game. To the first game, which I think legitimately scared me when it came to early console gaming, would have been Clock Tower for the Super Nintendo. That one. And that one still holds up. We'd like to do a class on that one at some point, but yeah, those who know that game, that's a quality game and a disturbing game in a lot of ways. Get some red medicine there. Once again, when you're ready, punch through the wall in that north side to get back to the middle floor of the mansion. Speaking of scary games class, leave a comment. I'm curious what the first game which you considered to actually be, really unnerved you, unsettled, scared you. Doesn't have to be an Outlast or something like that, which most people universally agree is pretty scary, but, something more of this era of gaming. Certainly depends on when you grew up, obviously. That would play into it as well, but, yeah, what are some of the oldest games that you think can actually tap into that emotion of fear, despite the graphical limitations of this era of gaming, and even, some of the early 90s, when things got a little more unsettling. But yeah, I would give that nod to Clock Tower myself, but I'd be curious to hear what you think. And once you're ready, stocked up, go to the north wall and punch just above this table here. Climb up to head upstairs. And then on the north wall of this area, open up this door, and this is the warp to the final area in this game. Shocker, it's one more forest. Which I kind of guess makes sense considering who the final boss is. Or more of a jungle biome, whatever you want to call this, with the trees and everything. But yeah, you just let everybody slap you around. Gary's got a very good tip here for the final boss, so you shouldn't take too much damage, even if you're not in the best shape for some reason coming into this. Didn't waste any time stopping off. Maybe you're going for a speed run or something. Just using this for the directions, that's fine. The strategies for the final boss will certainly prove to be effective here. I want to mention you can get up close and do the warped type strategy, a la Super Mario Bros. 2, but I think Gary's strategy is much more reliable. Take the low or the high road, doesn't matter, we got those boots. Got a bunch of weak enemies for some reason, they did not scale up the difficulty with this one, but anyway. Let's go to him one final time, this Dr. Chaos walkthrough. Gary, take us home.
Boss beaters.
Alright, let's call the final boss a PO'd Fire Lion, but to be fair, we did stab him in the face. Speaking of which, yeah, you gotta stab him in the face to start this party. Stay at the top left, pretty much where we first come in, below that little alcove in the ceiling like we show. Keep firing, only pause to make these jumps over his occasional pair of straight shots, just like we show right here. And you can take him down, generally without taking any damage, maybe 1 or 2 hits at the most, but 10 shots of that final laser will take him down. Good luck and congratulations, you have beaten Dr. Chaos.
Good call, Gary. Thank you very much. Yeah, if you stab him as you're falling down, you can avoid getting hit by that initial shot. Now we have what seems like a romantic scene between Michael and his brother, putting his arms out like that as the sun comes. It's very like the end of other games like Rockin' Cats or Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu, where there is that implied romance, but that's nice. Brothers reunited. Congratulations, you are great. Yeah, you played through the entire game. Not everyone would have done that. One last time, please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so to enroll in this class. We do one every week in the same spot. Click that like button as well if you don't mind. It really does help us out to make future classes for you. And leave a comment, if not about what you thought was the first legitimately scary game on a console or otherwise. Also, which do you prefer, this or Goonies 2? I'm sure there's camps for both games, but gotta be curious to see if most folks agree with me that Goonies 2 is marginally better than Dr. Chaos, or maybe it's just personal preference. But that's our time for this week. We'll see you next week in the same spot for next week's class, right here on Video Games 101. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and comment on this video, and click subscribe if you haven't already, as this seriously helps me to keep making great content for you. And check the description of this video to see what song is playing right now.